Welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. This is Cyrus, and today we're talking once again about my favorite subject, which is disappearing into source consciousness, becoming pure love and nothing else, the destruction of your individuality, becoming a floating orb of light in a sea of lava lamp colors, and merging back with a collective and the individual, again, disappearing. Probably talked about this before, but we're also going to talk a little bit about what I would say highly verifiable and credible spirit sources have to say about this concept, because this is a topic that popped up on Michael Tim's Afterlife blog this week, and it's a really great article. So I hope this quick video will benefit those of you who are confused or struggling with these concepts, especially as it relates to crossing over. So we establish that there is an afterlife. We establish that there's other dimensions. We establish there's a multi-dimensional component to the universe. But then what does that mean? Where do we go? What happens to us? And is it really like we survive death if what we are after we die is beyond our comprehension? To paraphrase Michael Shermer, who said the same thing in an article that came out like a year or two ago. He had the arch skeptic, the editor of Skeptical Inquirer. He had a kind of ADC, after death contact, with I think his wife's father, and it did get him thinking about the idea of an afterlife. And basically he said, okay, even if there is an afterlife, is it really an afterlife if who and what you are disappears, or as some people who have NDEs say, and some people in the New Age community say, you disappear into God, into source consciousness? Who and what you were is gone. How is that really an afterlife, and not still like the self being extinguished? And Shermer, as the arch skeptic, he made a great point. So this is a video addressing again the same thing I've addressed before, but there's a new article about this, so I thought I would dive into that. Before we continue, I just wanted to mention a few things. First of all, of course, if you're new around here, if you like these conversations, go down and press that subscribe button, hit the like button, share the video if you think other people can benefit from this message. As for some news, well, it has been a stressful, weird, difficult last couple of weeks. You may notice that where I'm recording from looks a little bit nicer, because I am finally in a nice Airbnb, my own place. Well, kind of my own place. I'm in Kiev, Ukraine, studying still, and so much of my time is being preoccupied by the infamous CELTA class for would-be English teachers, or people trying to get a nice certification, existing teachers who want to improve their credentials. And it's more difficult than any university class I ever took back in uni, and it's just eating up so much of my time. And it's especially as somebody who's new at teaching, it's a real pain in the butt. So I've been a little bit slower to respond to some of you guys because of this. I've also had a few minor calamities. The first more minor calamity is that my microphone that I've been carrying around with me broke, and so I've been stuck doing interviews on some of the last interviews you've seen. I've been using like my earphones, and been kind of stuck, haven't been able to make good videos because of this. As you can see, and we now have a new microphone, which I'm already liking a lot more than the old one. It's lighter weight, it seems to have better audio. So I want to thank the patrons for buying this for me. So because of you guys on the Patreon who subscribe, put money in, I was able to have enough money to go out and go to an electronics shop and buy a quality microphone, so that I can get back to making videos with proper audio again. So thank you for that. Next calamity, staying in a dormitory for the last month in Ukraine. A lot of weird, sketchy people. My trusty DSLR camera that I've taken with me twice into North Korea, shot a couple documentaries with it, done so much with it. Basically, a criminal came in, broke into my locker, stole my camera. So for those of you who follow like my Instagram or my little travel channel, A lot of that's going to be finished now because I don't have a way to take nice photos again, or take quality videos. Some ideas I've had about doing some afterlife related documentaries are also going to, until further notice, be put on hold, at least until I get back to the USA and I can buy, a decent DSLR again off of eBay, a used one. So, calamity after calamity. So it has been a challenging couple of weeks, and that's, actually, I'm not even going into other challenging things, and then combining this with the class I'm in. So I'm just, oh man. So that leads us back to this article. So having kind of a crummy week, it's nice to read something that makes me feel happy again. And this was Michael Tim. Michael Tim, he's interviewed me. If you can search my name on his blog, and I've talked to him on the phone. He's a really cool guy in his 80s, former athlete, afterlife expert, maybe the afterlife expert. So back to what we were talking about at the beginning of this video, which is about, dying and merging into source consciousness and disappearing. What's the point? There is no real afterlife. We can talk about going to pure love or existing in a white light forever and ever. We hear NDEs talk about this sometimes. Some people have interpreted this from like Anita Morjani's NDE, and they say, well, this is what the afterlife really is. You just, who and what you are is wiped clean. You become just I always joke about floating orb of light. That's just an analogy. What I mean is you become a non-something, just pure consciousness that is in a very different state of consciousness that has nothing to do with who and what you are now anymore. So all that is wiped away. A lot of people believe this. If you go to a lot of forums, a lot of, whether it's consciousness or kind of new age or spiritualist forums, a lot of people, they firmly believe this idea. A lot of this info also comes out of channeled material. I don't feel like, bad-mouthing anybody or making, or criticizing people directly right now. So I'm just going to say channeled material. I'm not going to say who. But you get the idea, and this is something we talk a lot about in this channel. Now, there are some sources of information that those in the afterlife community consider to be credible because the people providing it have proven their worth. They have been proven themselves as evidential mediums, for example. I noticed the more credible the sources of information are, the more consistent it is. Very credible sources of information give a very different interpretation than what I kind of see as pop spirituality or pop new age ideas. One credible source is Silver Birch. Silver Birch came out of Maurice Barbanel, a journalist named Maurice Barbanel. Barbanel was an evidential medium, very, very testable, quite verifiable. And it wasn't like channeling where we see channelers today speaking to an audience and claiming the info is coming in, coming from beyond. Barbanel, I believe, would go into actual trance and address audiences through Silver Birch, an American Indian who was actually a go-between to a much higher dimensional entity. So it was, there's kind of like this stepping stone of dimensional entities from a much higher realm having to connect to a more middle realm that we call like the astral. It's what we talk about in this channel. And then using that middle go-between to get the message to us. It's difficult to get all the way to the top. So here is what Silver Birch said. So Silver Birch, the name taken by the apparent group soul communicating through the mediumship of British journalist Maurice Barbanel, put it this way when asked about this controversy, because back then, when was Maurice Barbanel, like 60, 70 years ago? Back then, it was the same stuff that people were debating about. There just wasn't an internet. But you had same people kind of coming up with the same ideas that, if we go to the other side, it must be like, who and what we are disappears. Here's what it says. And this is, now keep in mind, the first sentence of this really highlights where a lot of this information comes from. It comes from East religious texts, East religious ideas, that during the hippie movement, those East religious ideas married with Western philosophy a bit. And that is, to me, is the real source of this. And so there are individual parts of Buddhism and Hinduism that directly say that basically, for example, in Buddhism, it can be interpreted that nirvana is a destruction of the self completely, and you merge with source consciousness. That's a philosophical interpretation. You could also say nirvana is just a clarity of the universe and a clarity of your oneness with everybody while still being yourself, which is a pretty common interpretation. But another interpretation is death and merging with source consciousness. Eckhart Tolle literally says this. Eckhart Tolle says that we die, we merge with source consciousness. We obtain nirvana if we obtained it on this planet, basically, and if we stop the reincarnation cycle, and then we become one with God. So, and Eckhart Tolle has about 100,000 times more followers than I think the average people into objective afterlife information or Silver Birch. So these are the ideas that get that spread. And Silver Birch is now addressing that specifically. He says, or the group says, the ultimate is not attainment of nirvana. How is that possible? The ultimate is not attainment of nirvana. Strange that now this is really going against the grain. He says, all spiritual progress is toward increasing individuality. What? Aren't we supposed to destroy individuality and do away with what makes us who we are? Right? Silver Birch doesn't think so. He says, you do not become less of an individual, you become more of an individual as you progress through multidimensional levels of reality. Well, that's kind of a plot twist. I thought that we merge with our higher self, which is some nirvanic type of entity, and who and what we were just disappears, right? No, maybe like self-development isn't pointless. Maybe I shouldn't toss away those Tony Robbins books. Maybe the more I learn about myself and develop who I am as a person and develop skills like confidence and social skills and humanity and being of service to other people and being a good person and practicing the golden rule and learning about what I like and what I love and my artistic abilities and the essence of who I am, maybe that is actually spiritual development. Maybe that's not all stuff that just gets destroyed once I leave this dimension. All progress is toward increasing individuality. You do not become less of an individual, you become more of an individual. You develop latent gifts, you acquire greater knowledge, your character becomes stronger. More of the divine is exhibited through you, divine creation coming through your individuality. Okay? So your hobbies even, your weird obsession with painting with painting black birds, whatever it is, your things that you think are quirky. This is the divine spirit that is expressing itself through you. It's no joke. Okay, Picasso didn't pass away and just join source consciousness and become an entity that could care less about artwork, did it? I don't think so. Your character becomes stronger. Again, self-development. More of the divine is exhibited through you. The Great Spirit is infinite, and so there is an infinite development to be achieved. Perfection is never attained. There is a constant striving towards it. You do not ever lose yourself. What you succeed in doing is finding yourself. Are you finding yourself? Those of you watching this video, is your life just a 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 or these days 7 to 7 work schedule? Or are you doing something or doing activities to develop as a spirit, as a soul, so that you gain greater consciousness, greater understanding of your place in the universe, and then enhancing and growing in that area? Because I don't think this is all just going to happen by itself on the other side. Silver Birch went on to say that such conditions are beyond human language and that we cannot understand it until we attain it. So the higher dimensional levels of the individual. You do not lose your individuality in a sea of, look at this, you do not lose your individuality in a sea of greater consciousness. but that depth of the ocean becomes included in your individuality. So who you are as a person becomes part of the big scheme of things in higher dimensions. So you can be aware of the bigger scheme of things as your consciousness develops, but you never go away. And it's probably bad news for those of us who want to go away. Well, you're not going away, so you may as well grow into that which you are. So then he goes on and basically talks about all these other sources that say the same thing. Even, Frederick Myers communicating through Cummins, Geraldine Cummins, and I disagreed with elements of this book, The Road to Immortality. There's some parts I really didn't resonate with me, but even that book paraphrases the same concept. Alan Kardec basically has the same concept, and so does Emanuel Swedenborg. Emanuel Swedenborg says you will never lose your identity. Swedenborg, I'm sorry, this wasn't Swedenborg talking, it was a spirit claiming to be Emanuel Swedenborg, and this was coming through a George Dexter in the 1850s. It still sounds like Swedenborg, but who knows? I need more facts to say this. Let's just say a medium named George Dexter in the 1850s. I don't know anything about the guy, but Dexter says, claiming to be Swedenborg, that if God had designed to absorb all souls into himself, there would have been no necessity at first to give off from himself distinct identical germs, possessing all the characteristics of independence. This is brilliant. Therefore, as every spirit is independent in his mind and its exercise, how could God contravene his own substitutes? This is the kind of stuff that Swedenborg wrote, so it certainly sounds like Swedenborg. You can find similar paragraphs in Swedenborg's work. Same concept, makes sense to me. So what do I have to say then to the people who are pushing the other idea? Well, good luck with that. If you really, really want that, it might happen to you. But I think the rest of us are going to enjoy being in who we are, developing as individuals, growing to love ourselves and each other, finding joy in life and happiness, which we can start doing here in this world, and you should start doing now. There's so many things that poke holes in finding self-acceptance, happiness, and this is what the Earth School is about. So even if you don't feel like that at all, it's okay. It's part of the process of getting to that point. And we want to get to that point here and take it with us, because it really helps once we're on the astral side. This is Cyrus. If you like this, if you want to become a patron and help support this work, head over to Afterlife University. You can join in for our often weekly guest interviews. We just had Ken Show on. We had Keith Clark on. We had Bobby Gallo on. A lot of fascinating interview guests. You can join those interviews, join special discussions and one-on-one time with me. That's at the $30 a month patron range. You can join through PayPal at afterlifetopics.com/university or at patreon.com/afterlifetopics. Either of those addresses work, and get involved, or you can just order some of the books that I've produced and that are promoted through Afterlife Topics, and that's Understanding Life After Death and the Afterlife and Beyond. All of that is at afterlifetopics.com. Finally, you can join the Facebook group, approaching 10,000 members now. How cool is that? The most active metaphysical community on Facebook, Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. I will catch you guys on the next video.